Hi, welcome to Yoga for Runners. This is a series of short poses and stretches that I use after my runs, so hopefully it will feel really good for you. It opens up sort of back of the legs, hips, shoulders, all the places that can get really tight. So props that will be useful for today, grabbing some kind of strap, so if you haven't got one of these then bathrobe belt, dressing gown belt, long scarf, something like that, and having that handy. And then a couple of blocks. These are not essential. If you've got them, they'll be really helpful. You can totally swap in with a couple of sturdy water bottles of the same height or a couple of sturdy books. So if you've got something that you can use for that, then keeping that nearby as well. And otherwise, just grabbing a blanket or a folded up towel, folded up hoodie, something like that. This is just to go under the knees, provide a bit of cushioning. So if you've got something like that, that'll be really good too. Okay, so coming to start lying down on your back and keeping the knees bent. Feet can come slightly towards the outside of the mat, bringing the knees together. And feel free to pop something underneath the head if that feels good. Maybe the hands come to the belly. And starting by taking a few breaths in through the nose and slowly out through the mouth. So maybe you've just come back from a run. So using this as an opportunity to send nourishing breath and oxygen to all those tired muscles as you breathe in. And as you exhale, getting rid of all the waste gases, all the carbon dioxide. And seeing if you can send your breath down into your belly. So if the hands are on the belly, maybe as you inhale, seeing and noticing how the belly rises up to meet the hands. And as you exhale, how it falls away from the palms of the hands. So getting a feeling for the 3D nature of the breath and how it moves in the body and the way that it changes the shape of the body. This is a great breath for practicing after a run. It's a really deep and nourishing breath. And then maybe drawing your attention to the lower ribs, seeing if you can send your breath to there for a couple of breaths. So expanding the lower ribs out to the side and to the back of the body. And noticing what it feels like to breathe into this bit of the body. This is a really great breath to use when you're running. It allows the breath to stay deep and to get all of the nutrients and oxygen you need into the body as you run. Sometimes when we're running, it can end up really high up in the chest. So seeing if you can have a couple more breaths, just breathing into the lower ribs. The shoulders stay nice and relaxed, they're not moving. And focusing particularly on the lower ribs expanding to the sides and the back of the body. And on your next inhale, drawing both knees into the chest. You can keep your eyes closed if you want, and fingers interlace around the shins, taking a little rock from side to side. Loosening up the lower back, allowing a little bit of movement through the lower back and the hips. And then coming back to centre and taking your fingers just to link around the right shin, allowing the left leg to straighten out towards the ground. And then as you inhale, drawing that right knee up towards the chest. And then opening the eyes and grabbing hold of whatever strap you've got. And linking it around the ball of the right foot. And keeping it bent for now, and then slowly straightening it out so the foot straightens out towards the end of the mat. So keeping the leg nice and low. And seeing if you can hold onto the straps as close to your body as you can. It helps keep the chest and the shoulders relaxed. So if you're able to have the chest and the shoulders down to the ground, then that's great. And then on your next inhale, maybe that right leg lifts a little higher. So all you're wanting to do is take it to the place where you just begin to feel a stretch in the back of the leg. So nothing that's really intense, not a super crazy stretch, but where you just begin to feel the edge of the stretch. So that's the place where you're taking it. So it might be that your leg stays quite low down. Maybe you've been running a lot this week and your hamstrings and calves are really tight. That's completely okay. There's no kind of goal here for where your legs need to be. It's all about working into your body and to your muscles and feeling into what's going on for you. So taking a couple of breaths here, breathing into the back of the leg, holding onto the strap, maybe seeing if the leg can relax a little bit, closing the eyes if that feels better and easier to help focus on what's going on. And then on your next exhale, really slowly moving that right leg out to the side. So out to the right hand side, opening up the inner thigh and coming as far as feels good here. So maybe the leg just comes a little bit over to the right. Maybe it comes a little further. Keeping that left hip grounded on the floor and the right and the left shoulder grounded on the floor. So it's just the right leg that's moving over. Everything else in the body is staying where it is. And then taking a couple of breaths here. So often when we're running, we think about stretching the backs of the legs, but we don't often get into the hips in this way. Maybe you do. I know it's something that I often miss. So this is a really nice way to make sure the hips get opened up as well. They work really, really hard when you're running. And the hips are ball and socket joints. So actually it's kind of made to have this circular movement, this opening to all sides, and when we're running it's a lot more linear, so this is really good for the hip to have the opportunity to open in a variety of directions. The body loves variety, so this is really helpful. So taking one more breath here, and then as you inhale, slowly allowing that leg to come back up to centre. And then we'll take it over to your left hand side. So if you're like me and you've got a wall there, you may need to have a little scoot over. Certainly doing yoga at home has its furniture challenges. And then as you exhale, bring it over to the left. Oh, that's quite handy. So just so happens that the wall's in a great place for my foot, so I can have a little rest there. And again, trying to keep this shoulder grounded down. You might find that hip lifts up a bit because it's that leg that's coming over, but seeing if you can keep both shoulders grounded. So this starts getting into the outside of the hip, and this is a particularly notoriously tough place to stretch. So and it can get really, really tight. So places like the IT band, the TFL, the piriformis, these are all really, really tricky areas. So we'll try and get into a few of those today, and hopefully that'll provide you a little bit of looseness. So sending your breath to anywhere that's feeling really, really tight, anywhere that's uncomfortable. And then on your next inhale, allowing that leg to come back up to center. One last breath in the middle. And bending the knee, removing the strap carefully, popping it off to one side. And then drawing both knees back into the chest, taking a little rock side to side if that feels good. Maybe noticing how that leg feels different to the other one if it does. And then interlacing the fingers around your left shin, allowing the right leg to straighten out to the ground and drawing the left knee up towards the chest. And whenever you're ready, taking hold of that strap again, popping it around the ball of the left foot. And then straightening the foot out towards the end of the mat first before lifting it. So remembering that you don't want to overstretch your hamstrings and holding on as low down as you can. And then maybe there's space for the leg to lift. Maybe it stays where it is. You'll probably find you've got one leg that feels different to the other, one that feels a bit tighter. We're not normally very symmetrical people in life in general, as hard as we try. And when we do things like running, it only shows us even more if we're, using one leg a little more than the other. We often end up with tightness more in one leg or one hip. So don't worry if you've got one leg or one hip that's tighter than the other today. So taking a few deep breaths here, breathing into the back of the leg, maybe the hamstring, the calf. Being really mindful here not to overstretch. So if it feels really intense, backing out a little bit, bringing the leg a little bit closer to the ground. And then on your next exhale, allowing that leg to come out to the left-hand side. And again, just taking it as far as feels good for you. Maybe you bump into a wall. Maybe your foot gets to have a little rest. So feeling free to shuffle around from side to side wherever you need to be so that your leg can open out as much as it needs to. And then breathing into that space in the inner thigh and the groin. Taking one last breath here. And then on your next inhale, coming back up to center. Using the strap to bring your foot back up. And then as you exhale, bringing it down onto the other side. So I'm going to do a little shuffle back towards the middle so I don't end up losing you on the video. So exhale, the leg crosses the body and over to the right. So keeping both shoulders grounded here. The left hip can lift a little bit. And breathing into the outside of that left hip. So maybe checking in, how does this feel compared to the right hip? What's going on for you? Where does it feel like there's space? Where's the tightness? And sending your breath down into these areas where there might be a bit of tightness, there might be a bit of holding. One more breath here. And then on your next inhale, slowly bringing that leg back up to centre. Grabbing hold of both straps, taking hold of the ends if you can. One more breath in centre, opening up the back of the legs. And then bending that knee, removing the strap, taking it off to one side. Both knees coming to the chest, taking a little rock side to side. One more time. And then rolling up to seated. Excuse me. Okay. So bringing the feet out to the side, coming onto hands and knees. Hands are directly underneath the shoulders, knees are directly underneath the hips. Seeing if you can draw the spine long, bring the gaze down for just a moment. So thinking about having the crown of the head and your tailbone as far away from each other as you can. So getting that feeling of the spine being really nice and long. And then tucking the toes under, pressing through the hands and lifting the hips, coming into downward facing dog. So taking a really nice deep bend in the knees to begin with. Seeing if you can get that same feeling of lengthening through the spine that you were doing on your hands and knees. So crown of the head to the tailbone, as far away from each other as possible. And gaze comes between the thighs, between the shins to the back of the mat. So the head is relaxed, the neck is soft. And then from here, if you want to, you can play around with maybe pedaling the feet. So really slowly allowing one heel to come down as you come up onto the toes of the other foot. And then as you change your breath, as you inhale, then coming up onto the toes and lowering the other heel. And seeing if you can keep your hips level here so that it's just the feet that are changing rather than a rocking up from side to side on the hips. So going at your pace here, seeing if you can match the movement with the breath. So a heel comes down as you exhale, and then inhale to change feet. And then maybe you bring both feet down. The heels don't need to touch the back of the mat. You can still keep a bend in the knees, so not overstretching the hamstrings here, just having a moment to reach out, heels reaching down towards the mat, grounding down through the fingers, through the knuckles of the fingers. And then on your next inhale, coming up onto the tiptoes and lunging the right foot forward, using your hand to get it there if that feels better. And that foot's going to come forward in between the hands. So taking one breath here in this kind of high lunge with the hands down, you can have a little stretch into that back calf. And maybe a little rock backwards and forwards. And then bringing the left knee down. So if you're on sort of quite a hard surface, or you're on a really thin mat, you may want to pop something underneath your knee here. So the folded up towel or blanket, that'd be really good. Otherwise, keeping the hands to the ground, so you can be on fingertips, on fists or palms to the ground, untucking those back toes and allowing the left hip to sink down. So opening up the front of the hip flexor on the left side. So you've probably noticed with running that the fronts of the hips, the hip flexors, they tend to work very, very hard and can get really, really uncomfortably tight. So coming into this kind of supported low lunge is a great way to open them up. It means the rest of the body doesn't have to be doing any work, so it can just focus on opening up that area And if you want to, you can stay here for, for a few breaths longer if that feels good. And it may be that this feels quite intense as it is already. If you want to get more into the quads or into the front of the thigh, then you're welcome to bend the back knee. An option to come up, bringing the hands onto the right thigh. And then you can reach behind with the left hand, maybe grabbing the foot if there's space. And if there isn't space to grab the foot, you can just reach the hand back. There doesn't need to be contact here. Or you can use the strap to hook around the foot and help that way with grabbing hold of it. So sometimes if you're particularly tight, it can actually feel really nice to just do it this way. So that's okay as well. So whatever feels best for you here, you can either grab hold of the foot. I like to grab hold of the inside of the foot. It helps to keep the shoulder open, which also feels really good. Opening the chest, opening the shoulder. Like I said, you can just reach back, and that feels nice too. So wherever you are, maybe you're here, maybe you've stayed down in this low lunge. Whatever it is that you need today, taking another breath wherever you are. And then carefully making your way back to centre. Hands come down if you've lifted the back toes, then allowing them to come down. And then taking hold of your blocks or your water bottles if you've got them. And like I said, no worries if you haven't, just keep your hands to the ground. So if you have got them, popping them underneath the hands, allowing the spine to come a bit longer. And as you exhale, rocking back on the hips, bringing the blocks with you, and lifting the front toes. So now getting into the back of the legs. So if you haven't got the blocks here, you can just allow the fingertips to come down to the ground, or you can bring a hand to rest on the bent knee, on the bent legs. So, just not pressing into this one here, hasn't got any support. And taking a couple of breaths here. And then inhale, using the blocks to come forward. And exhale, coming back one more time. And if you're feeling particularly open in the back of the leg, you can fold forward here. You can also take a little rock side to side, or you can just stay still. So it's feeling into what your body needs, seeing if you can keep the spine nice and long wherever you are. And then inhale, coming forwards and taking the blocks off to one side. So bring the hands back down to the ground, and that right foot comes back to all fours. Drawing the spine long, tucking the toes under, pressing through the hands, downward facing dog. So whatever feels good in downward dog, maybe the knees are bent, maybe they straighten a little bit. If you're straightening the back of the legs, seeing if you can do that while keeping the spine nice and long. So if you notice as you straighten the legs that the spine rounds, then taking a little bend in the legs so the spine can be long. And on your next inhale, stepping forward, left foot comes in between the hands. And then taking a little breath here, stretching out maybe the right calf. If you come back a little bit, you can kind of start to press down a bit through that heel. That'll stretch out the right calf. You can rock back and forward a bit. And then bringing that back knee down, popping a blanket or a towel underneath it if that feels good. Hands come to the ground and sinking down through that right hip, untucking the toes. So just checking in here with your front leg that the knee is over the ankle. It may be that you need to move your foot a little further forward or a little further backward, but definitely making sure the knee's not coming over the foot. So again, options on this side, it may be that this feels really, really good to stay here, which in that case, definitely stay where you are. If you do want to get into the quad, the front of the thigh, then you're welcome to come up, hands against the left thigh, bend in that back knee, and maybe you reach back with the right hand, maybe you grab hold of the foot. And if you don't reach, you can just have the arm reaching back. You can use your strap or your scarf, whatever you've got. So lots of options here. So this will open up the shoulder. It'll open up the front of the thigh. But if it feels better to be here and be getting into just that hip flexor, and that's what you need, then staying with the hip flexor. So wherever you are, one more breath. And then carefully, hands come back down to the ground. And taking hold of your blocks if you've got them. Bring them underneath the shoulders. And as you exhale, rocking back, maybe the front toes lift, getting into the back of that left leg. Inhale, walking the blocks forward, bending into that front knee, opening up the hip flexors. And exhale, coming back one more time. So option here to take whatever feels good for you. Maybe you fold over the leg a little bit more. Maybe you take that rock from side to side. Maybe stay still for the next breath. And then inhale, coming forward. Taking the blocks off to one side. Hands either side of that foot, stepping the foot back. And coming into all fours. So making sure, just checking in the hands are underneath your shoulders and the knees are underneath the hips. We're coming to open up the hip a little bit more and the glutes. So drawing the right knee forward, just to the outside of that right hand, and allowing the right foot to come slightly to centre. And then walking the left foot and the left leg backwards, untucking the toes, and maybe just checking behind you that that leg's still parallel with the mat, that it's not kind of going off to one side anywhere. So just looking after the knee and the hip alignment. And then walking the hands one handprint forward, it just takes any stress off the lower back. So if you're super tight, you might find you're already feeling a bit of a stretch there. Otherwise, option 2, lower down a little bit more. So it might be that you come down onto elbows, or it might be that you come down all the way onto the ground. Sometimes when we come down, especially if this hip's tight, it can feel tempting to roll a little bit over to the right hand side because it actually kind of relieves the intensity of the stretch, and the body's very good at knowing how to make things more comfortable. So if you notice that you're rolling over a little bit, you might want to just pop your block or your folded up blanket or towel underneath that hip, maybe that way, maybe a little higher, and then that will stop that hip rolling over. It will keep the stretch in the right place for you. So just to keep the hips level, that can be a good little trick. And you can also lie on top of, whatever you've got. So, blankets, blocks, whatever, that feels good. So this is a stretch that if you've got tight hips can really kind of creep up on you. So staying with this if you can for a few more breaths, breathing into any tight areas. If you're feeling super, super open today and this is, you're not feeling it at all, then, if you're getting nothing lying down, then you are welcome to come up bend the back knee and hold on and get the stretch through the front of the thigh instead. But for most people, staying down here, you'll be getting a really nice opening through the glutes. So taking a couple more breaths wherever you are, breathing into any tight areas. And then bringing the hands back underneath the shoulders. Walking that left leg back in and then allowing the right knee to come back to centre. Okay, and then from here taking a few little circles through the hips if that feels good to release that pose. And then we'll come on to the other side. So back into your all fours position, left knee comes to the outside of the left hand, and then allowing that left foot to come slightly to centre. Walking the right foot backwards, checking that it's still parallel against the mat. And then finding your place here. So bringing the hands, one hand bring forward to take the pressure off the lower back. Maybe you stay here, maybe you come down to elbows. Maybe it feels really good to come down the whole way. And if you notice you're dipping over onto the left-hand side, popping a block underneath that left hip, and that will help keep your hips balanced. It will help make the stretch a little more intense, and you'll get into the right spot. So breathing into this hip, maybe it feels different, maybe it's tighter, maybe it's more open. Taking a few more deep breaths here. And if you are one of these lucky runners who doesn't get tight hips and you want to take that different variation to open up the front of the thigh that I suggested before, then you can absolutely come up, bend that back knee and grab hold of the foot instead. So finding your place, breathing into the hips. Maybe if you notice you're holding on in the front of the hips, seeing if you can allow everything to relax, to let go. And then inhale, bringing the hands underneath the shoulders, walking the back foot in, and bringing the left knee back to centre, taking those circles if that feels good. And then pressing through the hands, coming into a final downward facing dog. Opening up the back of the legs. And then while you're here in downward dog, grabbing hold of the outside of the mat with your hands and maybe allowing the chest to sink down a little more, opening up the shoulders and the chest a little more. Keeping the knees bent if that feels good, if you want to get that opening just in the shoulders. And then bringing the hands back to centre and bringing the knees down. Drawing the feet to the outside of the body and making your way back down onto your back, anything that you want to help you be cosy, anything under your head. So you can keep the knees bent, or if you'd rather, you can open them out, let the feet open to the side, hands open. Coming to rest in Shavasana. And coming back to that really deep belly breath. allowing your body to be completely supported by the mat, maybe melting down into it. Noticing how your body maybe feels different now to how it did at the beginning. What did it feel like to open up those different parts of the body? Maybe there's a little bit more space in the back of the legs or in the hips, maybe in the shoulders or the chest. Maybe a little bit more awareness of where it gets tight for you and the areas that maybe need a little bit more opening time, a little bit more stretching. All of these poses and stretches that you did today, you can always do for longer in your own time, and if there's one in particular that feels really good for you, then feel free to take that one and do it as much as feels good. So grabbing a few more breaths here, in through the nose and out through the mouth, allowing the body to completely relax. And then on your next inhale, if you're moving on and you're coming to seat, then slowly rolling over onto one side. Otherwise, feel free to stay resting as long as feels good. And then using your top hand to support yourself and your bottom hand coming up into any comfortable seated position, maybe cross-legged, maybe kneeling. Bringing the hands together in front of the chest and closing the eyes. Maybe the chin tucks slightly. And then allowing yourself to take one last really deep breath in, filling the body, filling the muscles with nourishing oxygen. And exhale, releasing everything in the body that needs to leave the body. Tiredness, waste gases, carbon dioxide. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope that this felt really useful and that it helped to open up your body. I look forward to practicing with you again soon. Namaste.